for us, what the key is to tune our geometry, to tune our instrument to be sounding in resonance, in coherence, in harmony. And so if you start dropping into more relaxed states and you're able to recognize the resistances in your energy field and shift these resistances. So like when I do Kundalini activation work, I literally see them as knots of energy in people's fields. So all these dramas and traumas that we experience sometimes in childhood, or we carry them from maybe even other lifetimes, it's important to do the work with capital W, like to recognize what those resistances are in the field and clear them out.
Welcome to the Phase 4 podcast, inspired by Vishen Lakhiani and Ajit Nawalkar, co-founders of EverCoach, a division of Vine Valley. In this podcast, we speak to coaches and creatives about where they were, where they are, and where they are going. This is the intersection of what we focus on expands, and your story is your superpower. My guest today is MaAra Divine. She is a soul guide, a Galactic Lyran Shaman, and she's dedicated to helping others unlock their multidimensional potential. With her expertise as a metaphysical activator and educator, she integrates a variety of quantum, shamanic, and psychological tools to provide tailored offerings for her clients. MaAra is a founder of the Source Language Institute, which is at sourcelanguage.org, and its mission is to teach and activate others to the purest communication via source code, also known as light language. She also currently facilitates online and in-person sound healing and Phoenix Rising Kundalini activation workshops in the New York and New Jersey area. MaAra, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I always love to begin with just tell us a little bit more about yourself, if there's anything left to tell.
Sure. Well, about myself is that I've been on this journey for a very long time. I think it's almost 25 years or so. And it's been an exciting ride. I'm really excited about what's happening right now as I'm seeing the momentum rising. So in my journey, when I was in my late 20s, this, I would say, roller coaster ride with many of us awakening just kind of started at the end of 2008, 2009. I was there in 2012. A lot of time spent in Central America working with plant medicine, Mayan shamans. And I remember back then, in 2012 especially, I was pregnant with my kid, who's 11 years old now. So it gives you that time frame. And there was a lot of that energy of like, wow, end of the world is coming, right? And at the same time, I'm carrying this new vibration, and every shaman is telling me this is a new child in the way that its spirit is new. It's never had an incarnation on Earth before. And so there's this like dichotomy of the end of the world, the new world, and you are the vessel for this new creation. And I feel we're in the same time frame right now. We are also stepping into creating something new, right? This carrying birth a new child. And at the same time, there's this death cycle happening. You and I just talking right before about Phoenix, right? And death cycle of letting go of the structures, letting go of everything that we know, and really opening our eyes to the illusion that has been around us, this matrixy reality, and starting to visualize what could possibly happen for ourselves. How does reality could look like? How could we live in communities together? So this weekend, for instance, I spent a beautiful festival with my community in Catskills, upstate New York, with my family, with my kids. With the older kids, we did some, mushroom plant medicine together, and we journeyed. There were teepees and yurts and workshops, and people holding hands around a lake and oming together, and then drinking cacao and dancing and celebrating. The love, the heart that we are, this unity consciousness. And it dawned on me like, wow, like this could be this potential reality. How can we live together like this so that children too are more accustomed to it, not separated in, the middle school locker lockers type of environments and competition, but more just being kids, running around, enjoying life, being connected to nature and ourselves too, like growing and expanding and singing. There's a lot of singing this weekend. And so, yeah, so for me, it's just like seeing different layers of my journey, whether it was through shamanism or energy work or many festivals, Burning Man. I got married at Burning Man, meeting my husband, all of that, and culminating to this moment right now, and starting to really to realize we are these quantum master creators. We get to choose what type of experiences we want. And the more we in this experiences where there is cohesion, where there is love in the air, it just feels home. Like you, and I think it's so important to find these communities right now for ourselves, and to come back to the base. And when I say base, like those, actually, I want to give this visual as a beautiful yurt on the property, and I was doing workshops in there. So we started with a workshop, and then they asked me to stay there and guard other workshops to happen. They all were about singing, actually, which is really interesting. It was all about throat. So I actually, my workshop at the end was all about tuning and like, healing each other with sound. And then all the other workshops had to do with singing too. And I realized in the yurt, in the womb, this is what's missing. Like we need to create these circular womb structures, this foundation, and really start singing and expressing ourselves in the most beautiful way. But the foundation really matters. Like, how can we come back home to the womb and feel nurtured and supported? And from there, take that frequency, take that love vibration and to the world. And that's kind of the love ripple effect, which is really my main website is loveripple.org. That's kind of my vision, always has been. If we can touch each person on one-on-one basis and ignite that spark within them, they can take it somewhere else. They can take it somewhere else. And that's the beautiful frequency that we can bring into the world.
That is so beautiful. This is like an introduction of an amazing book I want to read. Everything you just said there will be all the different chapters.
There's a book in the process. It's kind of, I have the outline. I have to sit down and start writing. But yeah, I have so much to share. But it's an evolving book also. I feel like it's all these books are like works in progress because our consciousness is changing, we expanding, and leaps and bounds quantumly is just what I think took even, and we can talk more about light language, what took for me to step into a journey 5-6 years. I'm seeing people stepping into it in 1 week. So, and that's really incredible to see and support and just like, wow, things have shifted.
Yeah, for me, mine was really fast, but maybe in about 6 months, so much. But I think I want to go back to where you started, right? 2012. Oh no, the world's ending. And you're like, no, it's beginning. And you are the vessel, you said, grounded in between the past and the future. And what a great time to start that whole like process, right? And now here we are later. COVID probably kickstarted it for most amount of people ever. But even since the turn of the century, it feels like people are just slowly waking up. I think maybe Eckhart Tolle, he brought that book out and kind of changed the dynamic, the conversations. You touched earlier that all the institutions are crumbling around us. You didn't say schools, governments, banks, but I'm guessing that's what you're talking about. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. The Power of Now, the book that you're referring to. And he also wrote a book on the New Earth timeline. And yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. I think the New Earth timeline, or whatever cliche word we're going to give it, is that potentiality where the systems are in support of what I was talking about, the communal living, the living in the heart, the courageous heart, versus the systems that were created were meant to enslave us, 9 to 5, right? They were educational system. Like I'm seeing my kids struggling in it because it's just not conducive to the new souls that I hear for the first time that are, on the 30 different missions to sit still all these hours where these children need to be running around, and they try to give these labels to these children, like to all these children with ADHD. And I was like, well, no, we're not going to use that label. We're going to say attention dial to higher dimensions. And that is very different, and that makes much more sense. And then for the, And if we give that permission slip for them to be them, then they express themselves in the galactic light language, my kid does, and more free and authentic and a true way versus, yeah, each of these systems were meant to put us in the box and tell us this is what you are and take our powers away. And I think what's happening right now is reclamation of our power. We're reclaiming who we are. We're remembering that we are these magical beings with a whole baggage of wisdom because we carry that on the soul level through all our lifetimes on Earth and beyond Earth. So I do many sessions also that well, not in the Bible, but it's called quantum healing hypnosis, which is a Dolores Cannon work. And it's just incredible how when you take someone just through hypnotic journey, they go often these days beyond lifetimes on Earth. They go into the galactic Arcturian lives, Lyran lives. And so the ability to remember that, wow, you're much bigger than this physical vehicle. And the physical vehicle is just a beautiful way for you to express and experience this reality. And really the soul is all about experiences, no matter what the experiences are. They can be light, they can be dark, and the soul is collecting the software that's on a quantum level, collecting these experiences to learn to integrate and upload and download to the source. Like we literally in this beautiful holographic reality constantly uploading information. And so yeah, it's recognizing that we're beautiful quantum beings of light and love, and that we need structures that support us to cultivate and nourish that light.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. This school thing, it's the one that is the most frustrating for me. Is the only thing that's changed in 100 years is the blackboard is now a whiteboard. But we're still training these kids with 2 15-minute breaks and a half an hour lunch. And it's just like, what are we? And then, like you say, all these every single kid has ADHD. Well, no, maybe the teacher is just boring, or the timeline is way too long. Like they need to get up and move around. And what do you call these schools? They have them in the States. Oh, man. They're like these academies, but they don't sit at the desk and do this. They move around. They do things, different activities, go into a different room.
Yeah.
But
Are you talking about the Waldorf schools?
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Rudolf Steiner's they used the Rudolf Steiner's philosophy, and that kind of gave them the framework. Yes. Yeah, there are those schools as well. I'm hearing also there are problems in those schools now too, where I think there is this woke culture, as you know, nomenclature for it, where it's becoming also not too, because it's not about being progressive, but it's following these more, I would say, socialistic, communistic ideology, but in a way that is losing also sovereignty. So, you know, having little children contemplate on the genders and things like that. Like, you know, there's just a lot of that movement happening in general. And I question the intention or with that type of teaching. And I think really ultimately it's nature schools that we need, like, you know, earth-based schools, like just having kids be more in nature, you know, do things craft with their hands. And I agree with you. Yeah, way too much time sitting down and not having enough breaks. It's a real issue. And so for us, it's, you know, as parents, it's like, how can we become conscious parents, compassionate parents to support them? Because luckily for them, they, you know, we understand the game here. And so, and that's what I'm doing with my child, is constantly nourishing him in other ways where school cannot.
100%. My son last year, he didn't do it this year. He went to a nature camp once a week. So the 4 days he would do his school, the 1 day, that's their school. And you can intertwine it as the curriculum. So like that place, they do give you a bit of the curriculum. But like you said, you look at all these kids flourishing in ways that you would never see it if they were just stuck in a box. And then the music thing, the festival that you went to, what I'm hearing out of that is just feeling, no thinking, just like the music, the just the workshops, the light, everything is feeling, and it's like art-based, you know? And it sounds like that's what it was, and it sounds like we need more of those kind of things.
Yeah, we don't have enough. I think as someone who over years been doing a lot of shamanic work and in different festivals and communities. The more we can be with the community, just being kind of like in the book of Eckhart Tolle, in the power of now. So it's now clock, not the future clock of anxiety, which most of the collective is feeling, and so they live it in the future, or depression, and they live it in the past. So how can we cultivate and learn how to be in the now? And when you sit in a circle, there's nothing more powerful than having that experience of being in the now, because you're being seen, you're being acknowledged, being loved. You get to journey into your subconscious through different workshops, whether it's a meditation, whether it's the sound, vibration, all of these tools to realign yourself back into your divine blueprint, as I call it, to your divine self, because we are like an instrument. So the way when I do workshops, I hold that container always for the people that come in, for them to step into the present moment, but also drop deeper into the connection for them to themselves. So deeper into parasympathetic state, where you're more relaxed, you're more in surrender. So whether it's through sound healing, so they just like lying on the mat and then they really relax in, and it's like getting a music massage for the whole body, and deep massage, right, to the tissue level. Because if you play in gongs or singing bowls, it's organic sound. It's 432 hertz, and the body already calibrating to. It's all about calibration, really. We are like this instrument. So I always say, like, whether it's a piano or a guitar, or I play handpan, for instance, if the instrument is out of tune, any music you're going to try to play on it is going to not sound off. So the resonance of the instrument is going to be off. So imagine we are that instrument. So for us, what the key is to tune our geometry, to tune our instrument to be sounding in resonance, in coherence, in harmony. And so if you start dropping into more relaxed states and you're able to recognize the resistances in your energy field and shift these resistances. So like when I do Kundalini activation work, I literally see them as knots of energy in people's fields. So all these dramas and traumas that we experience sometimes in childhood, or we carry them from maybe even other lifetimes, it's important to do the work with capital W, like to recognize what those resistances are in the field and clear them out, whether on your own or with the assistance of someone else. And that's a lot of the work I do. I'm just always saying we are perfect. We are angels that came from other dimensional spaces. And now that we have in this experience, we got conditioned and that instrument became out of tune. So how do we come back into that moment of now and recalibrate, right? Retune our instrument to be sounding beautiful again.
Yeah, I love it. So you gave me an awesome segue into Galactic Shaman and Lyran, but I also want to talk about attunement with that, because it can be difficult, and especially if you don't know what's going on and you're alone, it can be scary, because this attunement, you could just run back to where you were, because it's not, we know from Dr. Joe, not because it's better, just because it's familiar. So can you talk about the attunement process and if it was difficult for you or not?
So the attunement, I think the attunement you're referring to is like the attunement of the body, right? The body systems, the somatic systems. But yes, some of the healing that I do is galactic in nature of that. Like I mentioned, the software carries a lot of that information through space and time. And therefore, it's important to clear that information. So if there are any cords or any attachments that are sitting in the field, it's important to first do the clearing. And the clearing sometimes is multidimensional. So it means that trauma would have been carried from, let's say, the Lyran Wars, which is the beginning of time in this galaxy, where we had wars, like in Star Wars, literally, where, being from Lyra, which is a system where the humanoid experience has started. So a lot of us actually have, in one way or another, our soul started in a Lyra system, or maybe our ancestors have. So movie Avatar, for instance, the reason so many resonated with that movie is because on a soul level, we kind of remember that. That was a similar environment that James Cameron reenacted in the most beautiful visual way. We really resonated with that on the soul level. And why we did, because it's very close to the reality of my visions and how I'm in this avatar self, not with blue skin, more with brown skin, and 9 feet tall, has feline features, and this really somewhat similar environment to Earth with waterfalls and mountains, and somewhat different, right? Because it's different dimensional space. But then we got attacked by another beings called Dracos. So they were more like reptilian, a dragon. And that has started because we got attacked and it was this genocide. We migrated and we started moving to different other systems, Sirius system, Pleiadian system. Pleiadians are basically children of the Lyrans, and they just had to go as far as they could to escape the war. But yeah, so you should think about all of that. And so as the attunement is essentially clearing all of those traumas, and as I was mentioning, and bringing it back and tuning it to that divine blueprint where we were in these beautiful pristine waterfalls, and we were back into those spaces of being the avatar beings right before the bad ones came, and we were just always in service to others in that collective unified consciousness field. And so how can we bring it back even in our reality today? Because today in this body, we actually have a genome of 25 different star systems. So all those codes are sitting within our DNA. And this is where I think connected also to light language, or what I call source language. When I channel the language, those codes that are within our DNA actually also get reactivated.
That's awesome. It sounds like kind of like growing pains. There's a part where you have to just go through it, and then knowing on the other side everything will be good. I think
we just remembering. We're remembering really just what we are, and through the process, like a phoenix, we have to clear things and then elevate vibration from there. Yeah.
What you're saying about lion, is that picture in the middle behind you? Your head's kind of covered. Yeah, that one.
Yes, yes. That's a Lyran being. Yes, that's very close to how I see myself in that avatar self. Yeah, it's like a feline being, but humanoid, and that's just one depiction of the Lyrans. It was several races, and there's so many beautiful species just in our galaxy, like, in different dimensions alone. Some of them in the form, some of them are not in the form. But what's incredible, our features actually do show some of these innate traits. So if someone like a Lyran, I can actually tell by their face, because they have these specific feline eyes a bit, sometimes green, or the way their nose is shaped. It's really interesting, especially if you're in a more altered state of consciousness. The person starts shape-shifting because their soul is very connected to their avatar self, the higher self. Yeah.
Wow. How did this play out for humanity? It's good, bad? Is someone going to come back? Is there going to be another war between Dracos and Lyrans? How does that look?
That's a great question. I'm wondering about that too. It's already playing out. We just don't know exactly all the details, but we know for sure that the people in charge, they are not necessarily the most benevolent agendas. And so if you go back of, yes, replaying the dramas, what was happening here, what's happening here, what was happening there, what's happening here, we integrated that drama on Earth. So which means many of us came from different star systems as star seeds, and we are trying to replay that old story again, but in a different type of way. But there were those who were in charge. They were all seeking power and domination, and that is happening today still. You have that 1% or more of the population that is not interested in the good of all. It's only interested in their own domination. And then there is the others, who we play in different roles. Each one of us carries different unique signature, and each one is playing their piece of the puzzle. And usually when people go through awakening process, they start remembering their roles. You know, sometimes your role in this new Earth timeline is Earth grid worker. You're supposed to go to different places around the world and activate Mother Earth for her to remember, because we're here not just for our own experience, we're also here to shift Mother Earth into the next ascension cycle. That has never happened before, by the way. Or usually there's an extinction event. So this is going to be the first time where the people with the planet moving through an ascension, which is going to be fascinating. So everyone is here watching the show. It's the most interesting show in the galaxy right now. Every being pretty much is watching Earth and where we evolve. And as we evolve, so will they, because we're all interconnected. Again, we're quantum. There's no really time and space and separation. And so our evolution is affecting them too. On the other hand, you're saying about the bad. Yes, if we start throwing nuclear weapons and create ripples, quantum ripples in space and time because of the nuclear bomb, that's not going to be a good thing for the galaxy, all those dimensions. So they have law of non-interference, but they will interfere because that has happened once, and they're not going to allow that again. So there is very interesting play right now, like who is going to win, right? There's so many potentialities, and that's why it's important for us to awaken, because quantumly, there is a concept of superposition. Are you familiar with the idea of superposition and what that means? So superposition is a quantum term, which essentially means, so there is a concept of quantum entanglement, which means two particles in a distance, or Albert Einstein called it the spooky particles, right? And the spooky sphere, right? Two particles in distance. One can be here and another, maybe another side of the planet, doesn't matter. But if you, let's say, blow or tickle this particle here, that particle over there is going to feel the same thing. So when I do, for instance, any type of healing, and I'm sitting here in New Jersey, another person is Australia, it's like we don't have separation at all, because I'm able to completely mirror them and realign them and do all this quantum work, and distance does not really exist, because the particles, we're all entangled in a holographic universe. So that's quantum entanglement. The superposition means that there's also particles, but they are in a different, so they're doing the same thing. So imagine like there is at least 6 ballerinas dancing on the stage all at the same time, and you're watching all 6 ballerinas dancing and twirling. So it's 6 potentialities happening, the same thing is happening at the same time. So the question is, which ballerina is going to do the best? Which one is going to win this dance? And it's the one that actually, because they also have a chance, but it's the one we give the most intention and attention to. It's the one that we pay attention to the most. And if there's more people that paying attention only to that ballerina because she's doing amazing, then there's a concept of standing waves. So it's like a quantum wave that starts rising and rising and rising. And ultimately, it gets the highest and all other collapse. So the other ballerinas basically stop moving or collapsing, so to speak. And this one is the one that wins. So that's what's happening right now. So in terms of like timelines, so where are we going? We get to decide. Because if all of us are focused, let's say, on peace and love and living in community living and creating abundance and all these intentions and attentions that we're creating, that's what's going to happen. But we have to be very focused about what we want to create, because the quantum field doesn't understand, I would like to. The quantum field wants to have a solid foundation, as though this thing is already there. Right? So I want to build a project, or I want to build a community. So I have to imagine and visualize as though it's already in the quantum field. And because it already has, the movie has been played. All we're doing right now is moving closer to that potentiality and ensuring that standing wave is the one that actually manifests itself. So, and that's the fun part of being not just watching the show like everyone else, because I think you and I could have just been podcasters and, I don't know, Pleiadian system and watching the earthly show. No, we chose to be here, participating real time, not just NPCs in the video games, the non-players. We actually chose to be a player and consciously deliver this message to those of you who are listening to this. And so I encourage you to be a player, conscious player, and participate.
So good. There's so many ways I can go. Oh, man. Before we go further, you just said something there about the quantum field it doesn't know. And so the quote is Joe Dispenza: the quantum field responds not to what we want, it responds to who we are being. And that's why we ever
becoming, yeah. But we have to imagine as though it's already there in the field, because it doesn't understand otherwise. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So I have a question before we start moving more into your business part of it. If somebody, and maybe this is a good segue to that, but if somebody's resonating with this and if they're feeling like, hey, I want to learn more about this, what would they do?
Yeah. So, well, if you're in New Jersey, New York, I invite you to my in-person workshops, because there's nothing better than being in the power of now without the screens and just actually experiencing in real time. Putting together also a retreat in November in upstate New York. So if you're in the area, you're welcome, to connect. But I also do many one-on-ones online. So there's different modalities that you can explore. You can go to my website, loveripple.org, and go through the section says work with me. You can even book a free consultation session with me, just because you're not sure yet, like what do you need? We're just having a conversation. I get to know you, because there's so many different ways, and everyone in different places on that path and different things they need for themselves. So whether, they want to understand more of their past lives, or they just want some clearing of their energy field and activation of their field, which is the attunement, the crystalline soul healing part of it, or they want to go deeper understanding, their Akashic records, that kind of stuff. So everyone is very different in what the need is. And so, yeah, so that's the best way to get in touch with me.
I'm so happy you said Akashic Records. That's exactly where I was going. And I was wondering how much of this has to do with it. And like, when you're talking about those downloads, is that you just tapping into the Akashic Records, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, Akashic Records is like what I was mentioning, the quantum field. It's in similar nature. I mean, yes, people say it's records of a library of information. And each soul, right, carries that information quantumly with them through lifetimes. So I don't necessarily read people's Akashic records as in like, and I call it that way. But it is something that I do one way or another through my sessions, because as I do energy work on a person, or I take them through their past lives, as their soul remembering or showing them what they need to see and know and feel, I get to see it too with them, because being a galactic shaman, I'm tapping into that reality with them. I call it gleaming. So it's like I'm gleaming their information, their soul stream together with them. And so in that sense, the Akashic records are open and we get to experience it, because all the information is available. And time is not linear, it's multidimensional, and it's also alive. So at any point you go into any points in time, whether it's the Draco Lyran War, or it's, some life that was maybe not as entertaining, but it happened on Earth in the Middle Ages, it's still all relevant sometimes for the person's understanding of themselves. And usually in my sessions, people come with specific questions. So their higher self already knows what they need to experience, what they want to know. Some people are like health issues. Some people want to just know their soul purpose and what they should be focused on. So I see myself as a soul guide as well. I'm just here to do orientation. I'm just orienting you toward the light, really. And my biggest passion is what you mentioned in my bio, is also activating people through chakra and activating them to remember they also channelers of this information themselves. And specifically is this frequencies that they can bring through light language. So light language, or what I call source language, is actually innate ability that we all have, but because we were as kids told like, don't do this, don't babble, don't do, back to education, right? We close that off. And so I'm help people to reopen their innocence, their creativity, to reconnect to all of that. And then from that place to open those abilities to bring those frequencies through, because we all have that. So there's a course I offer. It's called Soul Code Mastery. It's available on sourcelanguage.org. And if that's also something that resonates with you, and you follow me on social media on Love Ripple Academy, I often do some little channeling of the language. And the language is incredible because it's a frequency language. We're moving right now from this age of mentalism to the age of frequency. So everything is frequency, everything is quantum. The technology is quantum to support, to hold more light, and to support us to remember how to hold frequency and channel that frequency. That's really our key goal right now in this journey of awakening.
Yeah. Nikola Tesla said, if you want to find the secrets to the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And it kind of circles right back to the beginning.
My favorite quote. So you said, yeah.
Wow. The fact, like, when you're at that thing and you're saying down by the water, and just people singing the whole time, that's it. People they're done with this, and they're not in their mind. They're clearing their throat chakra, allowing their truth to be spoken and heard. And people heal through that. And that's what seems like it's happening a lot. That's how I feel anyway. I think as we begin to wind down, if this episode resonates with you, please like, subscribe, share, and follow. And reach out to Diana. You can tell just from this conversation what she's all about. And if she resonates with you, definitely reach out to her. She has that retreat coming up in the Catskill Mountains, I believe.
Catskill Mountains, yeah. That's Hudson River, yeah, in New York. In November. It's just, there's different ways to connect, but and do a course together. And also I have my own podcast. So if you want to go deep into rabbit holes of some of this information I mentioned, it's called Soul Communication. So you can also check that out.
Tell us about that more, their podcast.
Yes, Soul Communication is actually interesting how it started. It started during the pandemic. There was an app called Clubhouse. I don't know if you're familiar with it. A lot of people started using it. It was a way to open different rooms and create these little circles. And I actually had an experience with light language in Mount Shasta with these inner earth beings. And anyway, I was told that my role is to bring it out more into the world and really activate people's throats and remembrance. And I was like, how am I going to do it? And then a friend told me about Clubhouse. So I've held this house or whatever virtual room for many years on Clubhouse until beginning of January, where some of the people there were like, I think it's time for you to like open it and maybe create a podcast. So that's how a small room of dedicated people turned into a podcast I've been doing since January, and bringing on a lot of really interesting speakers, from artists that coding light language and pieces of art that you see behind me, to people who are also cosmic shamans and different authors. I just had authors of Book of Synchronicity, people who kind of in my life or I meet on the journey or like resonate and kind of allow you to see different perspectives of how you can dive deeper into soul communication or reconnect with your soul in a way that, and through different modalities that help you to do that.
Your podcast sounds amazing. I'm wondering, I'm going to be honest, I didn't know if it was Lyran or Lyran. So I'm like looking up videos and different things to figure this out.
Different people call it differently. Some call it Lyra, some call it Lyra. And I remember when I reconnected to the memory, I also was not sure which name to go by, but both feel it almost doesn't matter. It's the human way of calling it, because in light language it's called differently.
And so I think it reminded me of like the lost city of Atlantis. And is there anything with that in here, or am I just looking at people's pictures and putting nothing together?
Well, the Lyrans have, because those are kind of the primordial ancestors, right, of the consciousness in this universal construct, in this galaxy. So not, because many of us came actually from Andromeda galaxy, And we started this evolution of consciousness in this particular universal construct here differently. So, and we came through the prism of Lyra. We actually picked the founding fathers picked that location on purpose because it's close actually to exit to Andromeda, and it was most habitable planets. And so the Atlantis is similar in the way that the Lyrans, the Syrians, the Pleiadians, the Orions, they all played a key role in the Atlantean culture because all of us came here, volunteered here to raise consciousness and build that advanced civilization back then. And so in the Lyran system, we were very more into nature, kind of like in the movie Avatar. So we didn't necessarily have, as far as I remember, solid structures as much. We did few like crystalline structures, but not particular as we have in Atlantis, as we had in Atlantis. Atlantis was all more on the water. And Atlantis was actually built more by the Orion culture, the Anunnakis. But yet we all different star seeds with different beings before, they played a role like the Nibiru gods. Because there was Atlantis and then there was Cam, Egypt, which is what outpost of Atlantis. They all kind of, in Lemuria too, these civilizations existed here at the same time, and they all had advanced technology in a different type of way. And then after Atlantis fell, there was Cam, the Egypt, and for me, that's still Atlantis. It was just the next iteration of Atlantis, and as we still have it today, the structures, the pyramids that we build. The Giza pyramid was built by few beings. It was Arcturian, so it was very much a stargate. So it wasn't necessarily built by human architecture as we know it today. You needed very sophisticated devices to be able to have these type of precise geometrical, rock shape in the way it is. We're still learning about, the pyramids and what they for and how, and you were mentioning Tesla, right? So Tesla was trying to recreate the scalar waves, and we actually play now technology today with scalar as well, but they knew it back then, eons ago. So we were high priests. Many of us went to initiatic schools, and because we cared a lot of that knowledge, we stayed. We experienced the earthly reincarnations. I remember my incarnation from Egypt. The next one was in the Mayan civilization, and then others, more like witchy lives in Europe and things like that. But, all of us went through some of these experiences. So Lyrans, yes, they were involved in their role of, because Lyrans were more about physicality and consciousness, and Arcturians were very technical. So they brought the architecture aspect of it, of building the ethereal form, and then actually, before even the actual physical pyramid was manifest, and you had to build the structure for it. So in the quantum field, there is just, the ideas of the thoughts, but then you have to put it into container, into frame, into sacred geometry. And then physicality is the last manifestation. So they were all very involved and still involved and interested to see where we go, where we headed, because in many ways we are the children.
When you're speaking about the pyramids right there, I was thinking before, I think we were saying off air about the octahedron. And that's what I think. When I think that, it's like that sound chamber, you're talking Om and vibration, everything, right? And so you don't see underneath, but if you could picture it as the octahedron, it's all...
It is octahedron, yeah. Yeah, the octahedron is the most stable form. So not even the triangle itself. The triangles are interesting too, but we're learning that octahedron is the most stable form because of, yes, it can anchor all the way down and then up as above, so below.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think I have a couple more questions. One would be maybe, what is the hope that you have the impact of the work that you're doing will have on the consciousness of humanity?
Well, I think it's all coming back to the laboratory for me, where raising the vibration. And so like I mentioned, everyone has their roles. I think for me, my role has always been on Earth is to elevate the consciousness, but also elevate not just human consciousness, the consciousness of this planet, of this realm. It's a realm as well. There's inner Earth beings here too. And so I volunteered to really support the grids, to support that ability to maintain that consciousness and rise it, and also support the stargates. So in my memories in Egypt, for instance, that was the high priestess that was keeping the stargate open until it was closed. And so right now, I've been building this earth grid for many years and continuing to do so. And it's all about clearing, again, the old traumas and dramas, even of Earth, right? Because there were even within the water. Right now, the water is melting. I was in Iceland. The glacier, the biggest glacier in Iceland, is melting, connecting to the waters. And there's a lot of information there of even the wars that happen on Earth. And water carries all of that information in its molecules. So clearing all of that, and as we clear, rebuild the new grids, because the old grids were taken down. They were also hijacked by negative entities, forces. And so I feel every light worker that's called to earth grid work has done it before. It's really like doing acupuncture for Mother Earth, for her to remember as well. Just like we go in and get in our sessions done to like retune, to realign, she needs that too. And I think we're going to see also her being more activated in terms of potential, earthquakes, volcanoes. It's just more of that activity happening for her because she's too just a teenager who's awakening. And in her process, she's questioning herself now. Who am I? What is all happening here? And as her Kundalini is going to start really activating, that's when we're going to see more of that little bit shake up and wake up happening. So activating her, and in the process also helping others to activate, because as more of us will be active and focused, like I said, on those superpositions, on those potentialities of the new Earth reality, then that will become our new reality. And it's just we're right now in the roller coaster ride of transition. So we are the pioneers. We are ushering in this new age, and unfortunately, things have to be destroyed to build a new, and it might be bumpy, and we might get nauseous. And that's what I'm seeing. We'll have bumpy ride in the next few years with all these structures collapsing, but there's also beautiful light at the end of the tunnel. So we just have to really hold still, hold our center, anchor ourselves, find a community, find a family, and get through it together.
Yeah, your vibe attracts your tribe. And I definitely shouldn't have said the word humanity there, because it isn't just humans, it's the whole thing. And we saw this in the pandemic, that I think I read something that the hole in the ozone layer cleaned itself up. The canals in Venice cleaned itself up.
And the dolphins showed up in the Venice Canal. They've never seen that before. Wow. That's how we knew that, yeah, there was a recalibration, reset happening for Mother Earth, because we also, we're polluting her, obviously, with all the chemtrails and all the ways that we're not respecting our habitation here. So she needed that as well. So in that way, it was good for her. And we'll see where that goes, because people talking about the climate change. I don't necessarily believe in climate change. I think Earth goes through cycles, and from consciousness perspective, she's going through a cycle right now. But there's something to be said about how we getting poisoned through food, through water, different means by the powers that be to suppress us down. And so it's important to educate ourselves and be very conscious about what we're consuming these days. And that 100%. Can be food, it can be information, news, media, you name it. The consumption level and the poisoning of the well is pretty distorted these days.
Yeah, like just a cell phone, right? You think in the last 10 or 15 years, people's attention span is gone. And it's like, man, it's sad. You go to a restaurant, I don't know, it might be different in Europe actually, but here for sure in North America, you go into a restaurant and four people are sitting at a table. They're not talking to each other. They're all on their phone, right? So I think something you said back there about the earth and there's going to be more storms and things like this. We're seeing it this year as one of they're saying it's going to be the worst year for hurricanes ever. And like, I don't know where we're at right now today, but I remember seeing early in the year, like some big category 4, category 5 hurricanes that have never happened that early in the season. And so like, we've still got another month or two of it to go. So we're seeing it.
There's a lot of changes. There's the of course the oceans getting warmer, right? The glacier melting, so that is happening for sure, and that causes the hurricanes. And then there's all this solar activity. I'm more into really tracking the solar activity. That's the most fascinating right now in terms of the geomagnetic storms we're experiencing, and the peak of the solar activity is already happening right now. So they used to say 2025. It's really happening already here. So if you go to space weather apps, they it's a
Human
good way
resonance?
to yeah. Schumann resonance. Schumann resonance is more of a heartbeat of Mother Earth. So it's always a bit on a delayed schedule from what really happens. So what I'm observing is that usually the sun, spits spits the solar flare, whatever class it is. It comes in as a wind to us. It becomes a geomagnetic storm, and that's why we get to see so many aurora borealis in places in the United States and Canada that have never seen them before, right?
Did you see them last week? There was more last week.
I have not seen them, but I know they've been happening. Yes, it's just mind-boggling. It's been going on since, well, it started in May, really, and it's going to increase more and more. So we in this very interesting cycle with the sun, but the sun till 2030 pretty much is here also to support our awakening. I actually had a few really deep experiences in ceremony with the sun. And soul is actually a being, 12-dimensional being that's here actually to awaken us through the light. So the more geomagnetic storms happen, it actually activates our DNA, it activates our memory. So we get a bombardment of light particles and sometimes people have hard time, during those solar storms, the headaches hurt, they have headaches or migraines and body hurts. But that's more just because the body is not calibrated properly. Like, again, coming back to that instrument, right? If you tune properly, usually the light particles are here to expand us. So more of that light that we can hold. And it's all the game of how much more light and capacity do you have in your field to hold more light? Because we're angelic beings, we come from the light. So this is what the sun is doing right now, is reactivating us. And so that is fascinating. And then Schumann resonance is more tracking the heartbeat of the Mother Earth, right? And so imagine we get in those light particles, we get it activated, the consciousness and vibration elevates, and then because of our elevated consciousness, we connected to the Mother, right? So she starts also, her heart starts beating in an elevated way with us. We synchronize in. And then you see, of course, the Schumann resonance rising on some days really high, especially like during portal days or when geomagnetic storm hits, and then a day or two later, because there's a delay a bit, right, of integrating that frequency and energy, then the Schumann spikes. This direct correlation. And it's happening like nonstop right now since, pretty much the last, eclipse season. So that was like April, May. And now we're like in this like go, go, go mode. Yeah. On this train, right?
Oh, yeah. And like you said, it's going to be turbulent for a couple of years. The first episode this year, I had astrology, numerology. I had someone do a forecast for this year. And that was one thing she said is like, she said, it's going to start out okay, but then it's going to get messy. And the next 3 years, she said, are going to be messy. And her point was the same, that you have to have that messiness and you have to break stuff in order to make it beautiful again, but it will be beautiful. And it always is like this throughout history. But her point was that these next 3 years, and so you said the exact same thing.
Yeah, and I've been getting this information through my own downloads, and I would even say as much as I keep on getting this fall. So, and the only thing that, at least in the United States, that indicates this fall is really, the upcoming changes that within the government. I'm not gonna say that word because that I mentioned because, but there's changes in the governments, and that transition might shake some things up, in the United States, and so I think, and then because all the systems are interconnected, it will affect all the other systems too. So things are going to start shaking from there on. Actually, financial system, I think that especially in the United States, the financial system is already hanging by a thread. And so we will see those changes. Absolutely agree with her. And also from astrological perspective, yes, because I am familiar with astrology, is the Pluto, right? Pluto energy is the planet known as a magician. So Pluto's connected to Scorpio. It's very about going into the depth, into the murky water. It's pulling all that dirt that was hidden under the rug to the light, right? And through Pluto is all about, like, the American Revolution happened years ago during the Pluto season in Aquarius specifically. Because Aquarius is the energy of collectivism, of togetherness, of innovation and change. And so it wants to see this type of change happening on a society level. And with the Pluto the magician that's here to do a phoenix type of activity, let's burn it all and then resurrect. It's the resurrection frequency. That's exactly what we're going to experience and see. And knowing through resurrection, the phoenix that comes out of it is going to be more beautiful, more magnificent, more powerful. But the actual journey of death is a hard one. And a lot of us have so many fears, and we hold on to them, and the illusion of how we think our reality is, and putting all those, like, reality glasses on can be a very destructive process, and not it shakes you up to the core, and not everyone is ready for it. So I think some of us who've been on this journey for longer, we're much more stable. We've seen it all, right? And so nothing surprises. We're getting ready. We know it's going to be rough. We'll get through it. I think for some others, it's just going to be much harder. So, and that's what I'm trying to convey in this message too, is like, get ready. And the getting ready means not necessarily going to the grocery and buying off all the shelves. Now, getting ready means strengthen your core, anchor to the core of the Mother Earth, strengthen your field as much as you can. Go do sun gazing in the morning, receive those codes from the sun that's here to activate you. Get your frame, your sacred geometry stable, you're more used to the light, because we'll get more and more bombardment of light. So then you're not wobbly, because the ascension symptoms just means you're wobbly. It means like your geometry just getting overwhelmed. But the more you tune properly and the more centered you are and grounded here in this reality, nothing can really phase you. You just allow this wave to wash over, and there will be many other waves. So really work on you, really cultivate that self-love, acceptance, and expression. And that's the best you can do during this ride.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You call it waves. I call it clouds. Same idea, right? If you just wait long enough, the clouds will pass, new clouds will come. And once you know it's an illusion, I think it makes it a lot easier just to kind of sit back and be like, okay, I got to ride this storm out. And I think that's what you're getting at. Right.
Yeah. And being okay to be in the middle of the storm, practice to be in the middle of the storm. I remember when I moved to New York City, this is like 14 years ago, and I started doing some ecstatic dance. One of our homework assignments was to go to Times Square and just practice one of the rhythms, which was stillness. So I would stand there in the middle of Times Square and allow all these tourists to run around me, all the noise, all the crazy screens, right? All that to happen, and just stand in stillness and meditate with open eyes. What practice is that, right? Stand in the middle of the storm, no matter what. And so however that looks like for you, learn how to be comfortable with that. So really encouraging people to get uncomfortable, because yes, uncharted territory is crazy and uncomfortable in that kind of way, but you can do it in a graceful way. Like one of the ecstatic dance modalities I teach is blindfolded. called Quantum Soul Dance. And it's all about how can you go into the darkness? How can you be comfortable with it? Can you explore the territory in the darkness without really knowing what's in front of you? So whatever that takes. So if you took a specific pathway to work and every day you turn off on the same exit, tomorrow try to turn off on a different exit and try to find your way home. Everyone has Siri, everyone has Google Maps. Try to find your way home in a different way and see what you uncover. Maybe there's new towns, new cool little stores, there's new reality patterns that you're going to be weaving and repatterning. So that's how we really get good in being comfortable and uncomfortable. So, yeah.
There's a motivational track I always listen to when I'm exercising, and it says that guy's like, the devil said you cannot withstand the storm, and the warrior said, I am the storm. But the waking meditation, that's another one. That's, if you can get to a point where you can do the meditation with your eyes open, you've been doing the work, and that you're definitely on the right track.
Yeah.
I always ask everybody this. This is the Phase 4 podcast, and Phase 4 in the 6-phase meditation by Vishnalakiani is about creating a future 3 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
So where is MaAra Divine 3 years from today?
3 years from today. What a great question. Wow. Everything's just moving so fast. I think in 3 years, I definitely see myself more expanded in my work. And we started the retreats. I think our retreats would go international. I would love to bring them to these earthquake points that the earth is kind of calling me. So maybe doing either retreats or places where I feel they're more power places for others, so taking them outside of the country. That'd be really wonderful. Activating more people for me is like the more people I can touch, the more love ripples they can create as well. And whether online or in person, however that looks like. So just continuing expanding my visibility and my podcast, and always staying true to myself and my courageous heart. That's always the key, like the authenticity, no matter where I am, whatever worlds I'm in, like staying true to yourself is the key. And for me, that always has been that, no matter what masks I wear. And we all wearing different masks and different hats as well, whether you're a mom or you're a businesswoman or whatever it is. I think radiating that authenticity is so important, and people really feel that. They know that this is what they should be expecting, because this unapologetic truth. And I think that unapologetic, like badass, like you said, warrior energy, that's within me. And like I really stepped into my full name, Diana, because I was going for a nickname for many years. And just Facebook last Saturday finally changed it to Diana. And I really feel that goddess energy in me. Like I've really stepped into and embodied it. So continue being the Diana goddess that I am, which is also huntress. I've been thinking about that a lot. She is not just sitting back and the other goddesses are just allowing things to come. She's with the arrows, shooting arrows left and right, manifesting, creating, and she's very much a warrior. So I think that energy is really activated in me, and so I'm excited to bring more of my arrows of light wherever I go. Light and love.
Beautiful. And by 3 years from now, we should be on the other side of that turbulent time. I think, do you know who Ken Wilber is?
Yeah, I do. Yes, of course.
When you were talking about the nature of reality, I'm like, this is the guy.
Yeah, I think the storm will come down more towards like 2029, 2030. I think in 3 years, because that would be 2027, I think we're just going to start creating the foundation. So we're still going to be very much in transition phase. And so, yes, it's going to be turbulent in the next 3-4 years, I feel. But by 2030, I have a strong feeling we're going to be in much more settled water than the storm that's coming.
Beautiful. I think before I ask my final question, when you were talking, you're at Egypt and then Mayan in another life, and then you were talking at the beginning about 2012. So when you were there in 2012, you knew this already, and did it change your feeling, or people were talking about the old earth dying and you're kind of like, you already knew that you have the baby inside you, but like, how did that feel? Did it change anything? And what part of mind were you at? Tulum, Chichen Itza, or somewhere else?
Yeah, what a great question. Thank you for asking. That's well, yes. It was very interesting. So at the beginning of 2012, I had an energy work done on me. And in that energy session, I had three lives that I saw. And the first one that I saw was the most grotesque one, where I saw myself as a man with these feathers standing on the steps of this temple of sorts, and I was beheaded. And saw my head actually rolling down the steps. So it was really interesting experience, and then other lives too. And so I was on this quest actually to find a place and remember and understand. And I knew deep down that I was, as a man, I was a shaman and I was a Mayan, like just based on the clothing that I was wearing, I could identify that. And so, yes, I went to Central America, South America, and in Central America, I was living in Guatemala for 6 months or so, and on the lake called Lake Atitlan, and felt very much at home there because there's actually different Mayan villages and groups that speak different languages. They're all in that place. And then I was working with this priestess, kind of local priestess, and she was actually guiding me with these Mayan ceremonies. They do these like fire ceremonies in the specific ways and working with herbs. And she would send me to all these different sites, right? There's in Honduras, there's Palenque in Mexico, Yucatan. I found where this happened. This was in Tikal. And in Tikal, I actually ended up spending a few days in and out. And I found exactly where it happened. It was this part of the park that's called Mundo Perdido, the old world. It used to be astrological complex. So most likely what was going on, like I was conversing with the stars and I was working with the plant medicine of cacao and mushrooms, which is what I've incredible been serving, especially during pandemic. Like people were asking to have these ceremonies. So my husband and I was facilitating many of them, and I feel those two medicines work very well together. And so, and fast forward, I'm back to Guatemala, pregnant. The father of my kid, we had issues, and I'm on these buses with all these people, and we're doing all these mind ceremonies, preparing for the end of the world. Everyone is kind of dying in their own way, and my illusions of family and partnership are dying as well. And in that kind of way, we pull up to Tikal for December 21st for that night, and many buses, many people there. I'm 7.5 months pregnant, and I have no idea where we're going to be, what we're going to do. We're already 5 days into the journey, and I'm following the crowd. And as it's a huge park, it's almost like 3 miles. It's not a small complex, and I see everyone starting to set up the fire, and it's right there at that Mundo Perdido, right in front of the temple. And for me, it was such a joke from the universe. It was exactly what you said, closing that cycle, that karmic cycle, all the way to this moment, and bringing new child in this world, new spirit that never experienced this reality. And everything in that moment just came together. It was like this full surrender, full release, and also this deeper reassurance, especially at nighttime. I remember at some point the shaman was drumming, and it was like I was seeing spirits, and it was this full understanding. This is this all as it meant to be, and this is how it is, and we'll see what's next, right? And so here we are again. We're in cycles, right? We're in the 12-year cycles as well, and I think we're in that cycle again of surrendering, of allowance, of everyone thinking this is the end, but it's just the beginning.
Wow. There's two things about mine in there. So you being the shaman, getting your head cut off and seeing it roll down. They had this sport. It was like soccer, but you couldn't use your hands. The sport, you could use any other part of your body to hit the ball, and there's a little.
Yeah.
And the story is that the king of the winning side or the winning team would sacrifice himself by getting beheaded. So when you say that, I'm just like, whoa, you're the king or you're the captain or something of the other side, and That's what came to mind. The other one was that I don't know the full story about 2012, but I heard parts where it's just that the calendar ends. Like nothing said the world was going to end, just their calendar ended there. And what that means is a whole new earth and a whole new beginning. And so it's so beautiful that at that exact time, you had this new baby inside you that you said wasn't incarnate from before, brand new soul. And that's happening at that exact time. I just think, oof, it gives me shivers.
Brand new soul on earth. So, because what I'm learning is that the mother and the child, they make a soul contract. That was the experience and clarity, because usually people say, the baby picks them with the parents, but actually it's a mutual type of picking of each other. It's contracts that we make way before we arrive here. So my child is from the Lyra system too. So this was a contract that he and I made, but he's never been on Earth. So that's the new learning of like him bringing this, new frequency, new light as it's needed right now on Earth. And, but yes, I'm familiar with that game, and I had to really understand sacrifice and why they were doing what they were doing. There's some incredible caves in Belize, actually, which is very close to Tikal on the other side of the border with Guatemala, where sometimes they would bring their whole family and would do sacrifices as well. And so for them, life was very transitionary. And many of these ancient, like the Egyptians too, the ancient Egyptians, as you were born in a very young age, you were told that, death is to be celebrated. It was like a party. So just cherish the experience you have at this moment, but don't be afraid of what's on the other side. And so therefore, for them, it was like, okay, I had this experience, short, long, and they saw this as an honor and respect the sacrifice. So it wasn't something that was grotesque. It's just our human self from this modern perspective is having a hard time like conceptualizing why that was needed. For them, it was like, no, you just lived in honor, and this is your time to go in that type of way and quickly, right, without suffering. So they played a different game. They saw this reality differently, and they created their own rituals, and they are very connected to the star systems. Obviously, I remember working with the plant medicine during that time. So it was the star people would materialize as well. Like there's not like in Palenque, for instance, there's all these carvings, all these, Quetzalcoatl, like that. Those are all, star beings.
Yeah, even the way Giza lines up with Orion's belt, right? It's like, wow, how did they know how to do that?
Well, that's the Egyptians, right? And the Mayans the same way. Their temples were also lined up in the same way. They're all stargates. They're all stargates. Those temples, they were all in a specific cosmic alignment for sure. And it's like, how did they know? Well, of course, they had support. It wasn't just something that they created on their own.
Chichen Itza, it's like, I don't know if you've ever been. It's really steep, but each side is 90 steps to the top, so 360 steps. And then on the top, they have a little kind of tomb, so 4 more sides, 364, and then the roof on top, 365. It's like, how did they know that? But yeah, I think my final question then would be, actually, I have a final question, which is how people reach you. But before that, is there anything I missed? So I always ask people, like, if you have something to sell it. If you have some message of hope, inspiration, or just kind of take it wherever you want.
For me, I think the message for everyone, as I mentioned, is just really to tune to their hearts and allow your full expression, your voice to be heard at this time. And so always from the heart. So I think it's so important to open the throat chakras right now. So I mentioned the course I have. It's a self-paced course, so you can do it on your own time. And there's also some coaching provided with that. So that's through sourcelanguage.org Institute. And highly encourage, for me, like the most exciting part is when someone connects and to their higher self, to their soul, to their soul expression. And I don't talk about it as much, but we are soon launching auroraquantum.io, which is some quantum technology that my husband and I've been working on. There's some on Etsy already through my Soul Tools shop. So we have different artifacts like these beautiful Egyptian rods that help you to meditate and calibrate, but also light technology, quantum technology, scale and tachyonic frequency. So we're playing a lot with frequency to help with health. So these are mobile technologies. Some people go to really expensive centers to sit in these type of fields, but now you can create your own little center at home. So for us, we trying to see how can we make it more affordable for people and really help everyone be healthy and vital and optimal. Because I don't believe in doctors. I think we are the technology, we are the light, and if we remembering but also optimizing our body, our mitochondria, then it's fully working well, that any pandemic that coming our way is not going to be scary. And the most important vitamin is vitamin G, which is gratitude. So stay always in gratitude. Yeah, no matter what's happening, even on the hardest day, just always being grateful and thankful.
It's so true, right? The Dr. Holden, he says that the mere perception of gratitude is that it changes the chemistry of your body. That if you feel gratitude, you can just on the spot like that change everything. The same story is happening, but you just approach it a different way. Diana, my final question is, how can people reach you?
Yeah, I mentioned loveripple.org, or find me on Instagram. So it's Love Ripple Academy. So my YouTube also is YouTube. And then the handle Love Ripple Academy on Instagram, TikTok. So that's the easiest way to find me. And
we'll put all those in the show notes. And Diana, thank you so much for your time today. I'm so grateful. This was awesome.
Thank you so much for having me, JP. Thank you.